If you are a buyer and actively looking at homes, or you will be looking at homes in the near future, this is going to be the exact checklist that you need in order to know if that house is right for you and what to check when you're going through a home. The reason I'm making this video is because I see so many people walking around with their hands in their pockets or their arms crossed, and they just walk through and they look at everything and they're like, yeah, I like it. But like, you're going to be living here. Don't you want to open some cabinets and get a better understanding of the house? So I do think that it's really important to be hands-on when you're at a showing for a house that you really, really like and you're strongly considering putting an offer in on. Sellers, if you found this video, this is also for you. If you know my style, I like to weave in the buyer side and the seller side so that everybody knows what everybody's thinking when you get into this situation yourself. So the very first thing that you are greeted by when you walk into a house is the smell. Not every house has an odor, and some houses have very strong odors. Those odors can be positive or they can be negative. If you're a seller and you have pets, if you're a seller and you cook a lot, certain types of food, if you're a cigarette smoker, those are the things that are going to greet that buyer when they walk in. And it's so important to try and neutralize that smell, all the smells, as much as you can, because I would say that an odor is one of the number one causes that lead a buyer not to be interested in buying. And buyers, you can tell me and share your stories, because I know that you have all realized that photos do great justice until you get in the house and you're like, oh, that's not what I expected. Or, oh, I didn't know that it smelled like this. So I know that you know what I'm talking about. And that's why this one is so important. So seller tip, if you can get a cup of coffee beans and a cup of white vinegar, pour them together in their separate cups, but place them in the same spot right next to each other. And you can allow any odors to be removed with this kind of natural remedy. All right, number 2, I want you to open doors, closets, drawers, windows, if you want to throw that into this category. We are trying to understand the quality of these items, as well as if they operate and if they function and how heavily they have been used. Something can look great until you open a drawer and it's stained and it's disgusting and it's like, oh, this needs to be replaced. Maybe the kitchen cabinets don't have a slow close that you really want. Maybe the toilet seats don't have a slow close that you really want. And while all of this is fixable, it all adds up. So the question is, when you start opening all of these cabinets, drawers, doors, windows, we're trying to find out, is this satisfactory to your life? Is this house going to function and operate the way it works best for you in your daily life? We're also trying to understand the condition. So when you open something, you can feel, is it solid wood, or is it just kind of like cheap? And then you close it and you don't love it. Is the hardware screwed into place? I mean, this is just a really big one, because it's so important to understand what you're buying. You have to touch things. This is going to be the seller tip on this one. If you are a homeowner who lives a cluttered life, it's actually really important to make sure that you remove all of your clutter from the property entirely. Either you donate it, you sell it, or best case scenario, you get a storage unit and put all your stuff, all the things that you don't need, into the storage unit. And I'll tell you why. When a buyer is opening all of those cabinets, those drawers, and those closets, if you took everything off the counters to shove it in a closet, you are subconsciously and subliminally telling the buyer there's not a lot of space in here. So now the buyer is going to be walking through the house. They open a closet, we'll say, and it's just shoved and packed. And you're like scared that, something's going to fall on you. This reroutes their brain. And now in the middle of their showing, instead of understanding the things that they need to understand, like if the house is right for them, now they're going in and having this microscopic lens looking at all of the cabinets in the kitchen, in the bathrooms, and they're asking themselves, is there enough space for me? And that's totally what we're trying to avoid. So I would say the one exception for this, sellers, is if you're able to stuff bins and then have the bins nice and organized in that closet, that would be the one exception, because the bins make the closet look organized, but what's inside the bins isn't getting checked. Nobody is going to be opening those bins and wondering what's in there, because that's technically private property and personal property. So it's very, very important that you make your house, no matter how big it is, you want it to look spacious. We want that buyer to be able to picture themselves in the house. And buyers, I can promise that you're thinking, yes, I don't like walking into a house that's just jam-packed with stuff, because it makes you feel claustrophobic. And then it kind of makes you wonder, okay, this house it's probably just not the right fit for me if I can't get all my things in here. So buyers, this is why it's so important for you to open things, because you kind of need to see like, how is a closet configured? That's important. Is there room for what you need it to be? And I guess the asterisk here would be, I know that it's uncomfortable to go through people's things when they are occupying the house, but the truth is, they know that you're going to be opening cabinets. We all know what we should be staying out of. We're not going in the nightstand. We're not trying to get into underwear drawers. We're not creepy, because dressers and nightstands don't convey. Dressers and nightstands are personal property and are going to be leaving the premises. You want to be looking at the things that stay. Bathrooms, kitchen, laundry room, garage cabinets, storage rooms. Those are all things that you should and want to be looking at. All right, let's move on to plumbing. Looking at plumbing when you are on a showing is typically only something that those who've had a negative experience with plumbing will look at. So buyers, I am highly encouraging you to flush the toilets, run the water, get in the shower, see that there's enough room, and make sure that you're not going to be hitting your elbows. You want to make sure that the water pressure is there and it's to your liking. You want to make sure that you get hot water quickly if that's of importance to you. You just kind of want to play around. You want to start thinking, how am I going to be living here day to day? And how can I understand this house now to see if it's the right fit? Plumbing is huge. Its actual inspector will do real plumbing tests, but these are just for your day-to-day uses. Okay, so this one I really like. You want to make sure that your cell phone works. It would be kind of weird to be at home and not be able to have a cell phone that works, but not every service provider covers every part of the country. So you just want to take a quick peek, maybe make a phone call, maybe hop on the internet and just see if that's something that works or doesn't work. All right, let's move on to the electrical items. When you are in a showing, you just want to touch the light switches. You want to understand what's a three-way, what works. Maybe the light bulb's burned out. Just, start playing. Does it function? Does it make sense? The actual inspector or an electrician, if you hire one, they are going to be the ones who actually check the breaker box so that you understand the voltage, the labeling, the important things that we probably don't know as the general public. Just get used to the light switches and understand like what's on a dimmer, what's on three-way, those kinds of things. Okay, the next one, you want to be checking the ceilings and the baseboards for water damage. It's very easy to paint these things and cover them up, but it's very important to know if there has been any water damage and that you find out. So it's really easy. You just simply look up, you take a little bit of a moment to see if there's any sort of stain or if there's like one area that's freshly painted, because new paint and old paint, although it's the same color, it doesn't typically match. When you're looking at the baseboards, you can get down and dirty and get on your hands and knees and do a little inspection to see what's going on. And sellers, this kind of goes into the condition of your house. If somebody walks in and the condition of your house is poor, they are going to be looking for everything, for all of the issues and the problems, because they got that feeling when they walked in. Now, sellers, if you keep a perfectly conditioned house, the buyer doesn't have an excuse to look for anything. They can actually focus on being in the house and understanding, is this the right home for me? You're selling a feeling and a buyer's buying a feeling. So why wouldn't you put your best foot forward and make sure that it's in great condition? I don't understand, but I think the thing is which I've said this in other videos, people tend to not see their own stuff or their own mess, or they don't smell their own smell because they're so used to it. And it's really important that you maybe bring a third party over, whether it's your real estate agent or a friend or a family member, who can be honest with you and say, this is what you need to do to get your house on par so that you can sell it quickly, and remind you that you are selling a feeling. The next one is actually kind of an interesting one. We want to look through the windows and find out what it is that exactly we're looking at. You might get excited that you see a big window, or in the distance you see a mountain or trees or water. In the periphery of that, like, what are we looking at directly? And for some people, a view is a big deal. Typically, if a view is a big deal, you're not looking at homes that are butting up next to each other or attached to each other or facing a wall or another condo unit. You've already done your preliminary work. But in some cases, you might find a beautiful single family house and there's like one or two rooms that just like look at a wall, and sellers, there's nothing you can do about that. That's just how the home is, and the orientation can't really be redone at this time. So it's very important to just take inventory of what's outside the windows. And we've already kind of covered this one. We want to talk about storage. Storage is huge. And just because a house is big, if you are buying a monstrous house, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a lot of storage. I've heard from people who have actually upsized. They didn't realize until they moved in that they didn't really have a lot of extra space, which is, it sounds surprising, but I really try to encourage that when I'm taking inventory of a home for somebody who's really excited. I want them to understand the functionality of the house and how they're going to live in it day to day, which leads me to my next example. I want you to stand in that bathroom, to open the drawer. I want you to stand in the kitchen and open the oven and the dishwasher if they're across from each other. Can they be open at the same time? I don't know why they would be. I don't cook, but I do dishes. And I know that if I ever need to have them open at the same time, and I've been in plenty of houses where they hit each other, that's not really ideal. You know, you open a fridge, does it hit the wall next to it? I just stuff that you learn, like where's the towel rack in the bathroom in comparison to where you need it to be or where you'd like it to be? What about the toilet paper holder? Like these are all things that you don't realize until you get in the house because you're not looking at it from that point of view. And getting in the shower is a really big one if you feel like the shower is going to be too small. These are just things that I see over and over and over. And I want you as the buyer to understand that it's okay to like go through people's houses because you're not snooping. You're actually checking out the house to see if it works for you. And sellers do welcome that. I've never come across a seller. It's like, don't let them in there. It just doesn't work like that. They know that they're selling a house and they know that everything in their house is going to be in their house and opening doors, closets, drawers, etc. So they're used to it. They've already prepared for that. And hopefully their real estate agent let them know. So I don't want you to be shy when you're going through houses. And the very last thing, I'm going to combine a few things together. Drive by the house at multiple times of the day. You want to understand the traffic patterns, who's around, talk to the neighbors, go to the grocery stores if this is a new area or a new city. You want to just kind of understand the full landscape of what you're walking into, of what you're buying into. Neighbors are a very, very healthy, plentiful source of information. They will give you the entire history of the neighborhood, of the neighbors, and of the actual seller if you can get them to start talking because they've probably lived there for 10 plus years, in some cases 40 plus years. They've got the scoop and they're going to spill the tea because they love to talk. And so that is one thing that I have found out when I go door knocking is neighbors will hold you up for 25 minutes telling you everything they can think of. So it works to your advantage. And I want you to start be hands-on and understand and know that it's okay to look through the house even when you feel uncomfortable because that's the only way you're going to know if it works for you.